All right, well, welcome to Lifepoint Church. If this is the first time you've ever been to Lifepoint, let me just extend a welcome to you. My name is Jeff. I'm the pastor here at Lifepoint, and we feel like it is one incredible honor to have you guys with us today at our fall kickoff, guys. This is the fall kickoff, and maybe you're like, what in the world is a fall kickoff? Are we kicking off the fall? What's going on? Fall kickoff here at Lifepoint means we celebrate. We celebrate the beginning of a new series. We launched a new series called Overwhelm today, and what a great word that sums up how many of us feel about life right now. It also is kicking off our brand new Lifepoint Kids Space, which is phenomenal. Check this out, guys. We have got, hold on, all right, we're going to clap in a minute. I just wanted to brag on some people for a moment. We've got a kids team and volunteers here at this church that are next to none. If there was like a church volunteer Olympics, we would just take the gold all the way. We'd sweep the whole thing. We've got such phenomenal people. I want you to know that for the last couple weeks, they have been tirelessly working to just get this kids space ready, literally coming down to the wire on Friday night here till 2 a.m. and back at it at 6 a.m. Just getting ready to create a space for kids. And let me tell you, the feedback from the kids are incredible. Let's right now, church, let's show our appreciation to our kids workers that are just going above and beyond. Let's let them know how excited we are. So, if you have a kid over in Lifepoint Kids and you go and you pick them up, just give that kids worker a high five or a hug or like a gift certificate for a massage or something. They'll appreciate it. They would love it. And it's just exciting being a part of a church that is constantly finding ways to reach that next generation and really finding ways to continue to reach this city. It's no secret this service is pretty packed out, and so if this is your first time here, we want you to know we're working on figuring out how do we create more space because we want to continue reaching more individuals, more families. If you are at all able to attend a 9:15 service, we do one earlier at 9:15. It's identical. I would highly encourage you, if you're able to attend that one, that would be great. It would help free up seats for more guests to be able to come. But regardless, we're super excited that you're here, and we're excited about this Overwhelm series beginning. We've got life groups kicking off in another week, so if you haven't signed up for a life group, you can sign up by taking one of the orange connection cards and sign up to be a part of a life group, and we'll get in touch with you and get you information. But I'm excited about this series. I think God's going to use this just in a powerful way to impact lives. And so I want to ask you a question, and I want you to kind of work with me today. You can talk back, you can amen, you can raise your hand. And so I want you to just respond by raising your hand right now to this question. How many of you would say, I love a good buffet? Come on, raise that. Keep it up, keep it up, keep it up. If the person next to you is lying, you raise it for them. All right, there you go. There's more hands. No lying in church, for crying out loud. This is church, all right? Lie when you get home. All right. So, right, we love a good buffet. There's something about a great buffet that is just, oh my goodness. Like, there's all kinds of buffets out there, but can we admit, like, Chinese buffet takes the cake, right? Which, by the way, there is cake at Chinese buffets, which is interesting. I guess, everybody likes cakes. And there's something about a Chinese buffet. Like, when I go to a buffet, I tell myself, like, I'm talking to myself. I'm like, self, keep it under control here, all right? You do not have to eat your weight in food to win. Like, I feel like it's a competition, right? And so I go in with this idea that I'm gonna pace myself. And so I get my plate, and I make my way down the buffet. And you always start where? You start at the rice, right? We start with a little bit of rice because rice makes a good base layer. It sort of takes on the flavor of everything around it. So we start with some rice, and then who here likes some good lo mein? Any lo mein people? I love some lo mein. So you throw a little bit of lo mein on top of that rice. Maybe you throw a lot of lo mein on top of that rice. This is my buffet. I get what I want. And so you know how it is. You make your way down, and then, like, any spicy people here? You're like, yes, the spicier the better, right? Kung Pao chicken is my go-to. I like that it's got some pow in there, It burns you now, burns you later kind of thing. Like you don't know. Come on, for real. Some of you right now, you're like, honey, I don't know what lunch is, but we're getting Chinese food for lunch. I know you smell this, and I'm not even apologizing for it. So we load up, then we find like there's even things we don't know what they are. Like, I have never discovered exactly what this is. Can anybody help me here? Dumpling, like chicken and dumpling. I don't even know. Okay, but you know what? It's all I can eat. So you get a couple of those, right? Throw those bad boys up on there, and then. I love, one thing that I find fascinating at Chinese buffets is there's something for everybody, right? So, for instance, I broke the tongs. It's my buffet. I use my fingers. So chicken wings, right? Does anybody get chicken wings at a Chinese buffet? Okay, all right. I mean, I didn't know that the Chinese were known for their chicken wings, but that's great if they are. And then there's, these guys, crab rangoons. Can I get a good amen for a crab rangoon? Man, I never stop at one crab rangoon. It's always like 2, possibly 3. I know this is cruel. You guys are just salivating as we sit there. And then you got egg rolls. You got to throw an egg roll up on there. And whoa, time out, rangoon down, egg roll back. And before I know it, I'm coming back to the table, and I'm a little bit embarrassed by myself. Is anybody here? You're like, don't look at me. I'm sharing. It's for others. It's, right? You're like, no, this needs to be a judgment-free zone, okay? And I make my way back. It's always funny because I look at my plate, and I'm like, somewhere along the lines, I forgot that it's all I can eat. I can go back. I can go back for more, but I piled it high because I'm afraid that they're going to see me coming and, like, take it all away. Like, don't get the food gone. Don't give that guy any more. You know, I've always wondered, and if you've done this, I'd love to meet you in the lobby, but can you go to these things at lunch and stay through dinner? Has anybody ever, if you have, I just want to know if that's, will I get arrested for that? Should we try it this week? I don't know. But I come back, and here's what happens. I come back to the table, and I've got a little bit of everything, and the truth is, this plate ends up really resembling the way I live my life. I wind up with a plate that is jammed full with a little bit of everything and a lot of nothing. I wind up with a plate that's overloaded and overwhelmed. And honestly, in life, if I'm not being careful, I will live my life in the same way. I will go through life overloaded and overwhelmed. I mean, how many know we live in an all-you-can-eat world, right? This is an all-you-can-eat world. Forrest Gump said what? He said, life is like a box of chocolates. I say false, Forrest. False. Life is like a Chinese buffet. Miles of endless goodness to satisfy, only to leave you wondering what in the world did I do to myself later, right? I think life's more like a buffet than a box of chocolates anyway. I mean, come on, those chocolates, most of them are nasty, right? You bite into them and then you put half of it back. I think that's why we say things like when we've got a schedule that's jam-packed, we say what? We say, man, my plate is full, right? I'd love to help you, but my plate is full. We say things like this when somebody overcommits. Man, it looks like you bit off more than you can chew, right? Or if you ever, maybe you overcommitted yourself and you said, man, I guess my eyes were bigger than my stomach. Isn't it interesting that we have these sayings that are related to buffet and food about how we tend to overdo it and we get ourselves overwhelmed with life? You know, if you're a student, right? Love college students. We got so many college students here, middle school and high school students. You just started back to class, and you're already overwhelmed, right? You were overwhelmed day one. The teacher said, here's your syllabus, and here's the assignments, and this is what's due this semester. And you're like, oh, my goodness. And you try to couple that with hanging with friends and a job and hobbies, and it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming. Any parents here? Raise your hand if you're a parent. That's a little overwhelming, isn't it? Right? I mean, parenting, nothing can prepare you for it. People are like, you know, do you have kids? Well, we're not ready for kids. Hello, you're never ready for kids, right? I mean, think about being a parent for a moment. This is the most overwhelming occupation in the world. You've got, if you're a parent, you're a cook, right? And not only are you a cook, but you are a cook that is trying to navigate the palates and tastes of unique individuals that would be perfectly happy with Blue Box Kraft macaroni and cheese, which, by the way, is awesome, all right? But then you're trying to throw nutritional value, and you got to figure out, like, what do I eat? And I got to come up with a menu that's going to satisfy everybody. And all it takes is one kid being like, this is yuck, right? And you're like, I slaved over that. It's not yuck. It's overwhelming trying to come up with all these menus and ideas. And then when you do figure out what you're going to cook, you actually have to go to the grocery store and get it right. Because there's, I don't know if your kids are like mine, but they stand in front of the pantry and they're like, there's nothing to eat. And I'm like, A, yes there is, and B, you don't have to eat if you don't want to. So we go to the grocery store, right? And we load up, and because I'm a guy, I got to get everything in one trip, right? So anybody else here, you're like, I got this. I don't need any help. So we got to navigate that, and then on top of that, if we actually want to go to the grocery store, we got to have that thing called a job, right? So that we can go and get some groceries, so we've got work that we're balancing and the menu that we're balancing. We've got the grocery runs that we're balancing, and then on top of that, there's the bills that come in, and it's like we get the mail hoping maybe there's a check in there. You guys still do this? It's like, is there? No, it's just bills. And so you're like, oh, you know what? I'll just put this right here in my apron that I pretty much live in with my sweatpants because I never have time for myself, and I'll get to those maybe. And then on top of that, there's laundry that is never ending because, have anybody heard, like, I got nothing to wear? For real, nothing to wear. And so there's laundry, and on top of that, we got come to church, and they have all these stinking handouts, and like, where am I even going to put that? I'll put that in the laundry because that's where it's going to wind up anyway when I find it in my pockets and my pants. And before long, we're just so loaded down with all the things that life has, but it doesn't stop there because there's endless opportunities available to us, and we want to experience them. And so, you got school, which is a good thing, right? And it's like, hey, let's go. It's time to go. We got to get out the door. And they're like, I can't find my bag. What do you mean you can't find your bag? It's in the middle of the kitchen, right where you left it yesterday, right? Because that's where bags apparently go. So you're like, I'll get it. We'll get it out there to the car. And, Jimmy's mom said he's taking him to the pool, and I think it'd be great if we go to the pool one last time before, the summer was over. And you're like, why not? Let's do that. I'll get the floaty. Let's make our way to the pool. And then, parents, do you know that, like you are sabotaged because, kids start coming home from school with flyers telling them all these great things they could do, like Little League is awesome. Like, Mom, can I play Little League? And you're like, yeah, why not? That'd be great. Wish I could play some Little League. So, yeah, let's do that. We add that into the mix. I'll just squeeze that in between laundry loads. I'll get you where I need to go. And, friends playing football. Well, that would be fun, Let's do that as well. I get it. Oh, goodness, bat down. Hold on. All right. And then if you're at my house, it's a never-ending request to go to the, oh, goodness, I hit myself in the face with a box of multi-grain crackers. Can I go to this? Hey, Dad, can we go to the skate park? Dad, can we go to the skate park? Yeah, hey, how about when we get a free minute? Dad, can we go to the skate park? Certainly. And then if there's any time left, right, you want to find a little time for yourself so that you can enjoy life, because who knows, this is stressful. And so you're like, well, I'd love to go to the gym if I could, get a workout in. But it's, and then, come on, let's just be real. But I got this. And then somebody's like, hey, man, how you doing? You're like, I'm good. Life is good. Like, for real? No, you're not so good. And, you can do this for a little while, but you can't do this forever. And so much of my life looks a lot like that plate. It's got a little bit of everything and a lot of nothing, and I find myself feeling so overtaxed and so overwhelmed that at some point we just got to take a deep breath and go, you know what? I can't do it all. I gotta just get rid of this for just a moment and breathe. And it's my hope that during this Overwhelm series that we'll have an opportunity where we can just breathe for a moment and be able to realize that I wasn't created to live life overwhelmed, overtaxed, overloaded, constantly running from place to place, trying to cram it all in. If you think about the world we live in, think about this. Is it any wonder we take medication to fall asleep and we drink energy drinks all day to get ourselves going? That's crazy. The energy drink industry is a $27.5 billion industry because we're running and we're balancing all of this, and we're balancing trying to keep the marriage together and avoid the job layoffs and pay down college loan debt. And then if you throw a toddler into the mix, like, Lord bless you, right? And if you're raising a teenager, like, you're at the top of my prayer list. I want you to know that, right? That's just a whole nother world. And honestly, some of you just seeing this, you laugh on the outside, but on the inside, you're like, oh my goodness, that is my life. I feel so overwhelmed just seeing that. And I got to wonder, why do we do this? Why do I do this to myself? Why do we do this to ourselves? Why do we run ourselves ragged? Why do we say yes when what we really want to say is no? Why are we so afraid of missing out? Why do we feel pressure to keep up with the Joneses? At some point in life, we come to the place where we realize that all you can eat does not mean eat all you can. It does not mean consume everything, say yes to everything. You see, here's what I find. Maybe this is a unique thing for me. I think it's more universal than that. But here's what I find happens to me. When I go to a buffet, especially a Chinese buffet, I get this plate that is just totally overloaded. I can never consume all of this. And I start picking at everything. And I eat some, I say I can't consume it. I consume all the rangoons, always. But I pick around at everything else. And then, and kind of embarrassing like, I take my napkins. Anybody do this? And you sort of put it to rest. Right? You drape your napkin over it. You're like, I don't want anybody to see that I'm wasting enough food to feed a village in a third world country. Just putting it to rest. But then I go back to the buffet and I get a clean plate. Now, I don't know about you, but my second trip to the buffet is different than my first. My second trip, I go through and I bypass all of the things that I no longer want or like, and I only get the things that I really want. And I want to tell you that you and I have the opportunity, if we would just take a moment to breathe and step back, to simply say, you know what? It's time for a clean plate. It's time for a clean plate. I want to put things on my plate that I'm supposed to carry. And so throughout this series, we're going to talk about what does it look like to navigate an overwhelmed schedule. Some of us, it's our schedules that drive us crazy. What does it look like to deal with depression? What does the Bible say about that? How do we deal with overwhelming distractions coming at us from all angles? What about in our families? We feel overwhelmed at home. How do we handle that? What's the Bible say? You know, when we started Lifepoint about 8.5 years ago, we were a couple families that were dreaming about creating a place where people could walk through the doors and they could find a clean plate. They could walk through the doors regardless of the past, regardless of the decisions that have been made, regardless of the mistakes, regardless of the harm, regardless of the addictions. They could come through and they could find a clean plate because Jesus makes all things new. And it's our hope and desire that through this series that we'll discover a clean plate, we'll discover joy, and we'll discover life. The theme verse for this church comes out of John chapter 10. And in John chapter 10, Jesus is helping people understand that he is like a good shepherd. Now, we don't have shepherds here in Wilmington, at least not that I'm familiar with, so this is a little foreign to us. But you see, in those days, you would have good shepherds and you would have hired hands. A hired hand is the kind of guy that would clock in and clock out. He didn't really care for the flock. He was doing a job. He was getting a paycheck. The good shepherd, though, cared for the flock. And the good shepherd would put himself in harm's way to protect and watch out for the flock. And Jesus is saying, I'm like a good shepherd. I'm like a good shepherd. I will lay down my life protecting the flock. And then he goes on, if you're familiar with the Bible or the stories in the Bible, the story of Jesus, he goes on and he does lay down his life on a cross for the flock, for you and for me. He's saying, I'm a good shepherd. And in John chapter 10, verse 10, he says this. He says, the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. He says, there's an enemy in this life, and he hates you, and he wants to do three things. He wants to steal, kill, and destroy in your life. And as we look around this world, I would say he's pretty good at it. He does an incredible job of stealing people's joy, their passion, their enthusiasm. But here's the thing, he doesn't do it in the manner that many of us think. Many of us think Satan's trying to get his minions to get us to just get caught up doing bad things. If we could just go rob a bank, like Satan's winning. And I want to tell you, his strategy is not to make you bad, but just simply make you busy. He doesn't have to overpower you. He just simply has to overwhelm you and get you so focused on balancing everything in life that you totally forget about being the person that God created you to be. See, Jesus says the thief wants to steal, kill, and destroy you, but he doesn't stop there. He goes on and says, but I have come. It's so important that we understand why Jesus came. He says, I have come that you may have life and have it to the full. See, you got an enemy that wants to just overload you, overwhelm you, swamp you down with stress, worry. But I've come that you might experience true life, joy, peace, and purpose, everything that I have created you for. There's a thief, and there's Jesus. And we've got to make the decision, who do I want to live my life for? You know, I don't know if you've ever been robbed. Anybody here ever had something stolen from you? It was about a year ago. It was a Sunday. We came home from church, had some incredible weekend at church, came home, and my daughter says, hey, there's glass in my room. Someone had broken into our house while we were at church, right? Broke into our house, went in through my daughter's window, broke her window, and went through, and they just started stealing random things. You could tell they were looking for a quick hit. I mean, they didn't mess with big items. They didn't take TVs, computers. They were looking for things they could turn around quick. So they stole my baseball cards, right? But like not just any, like Roberto Clemente baseball cards, Cal Ripken Jr. autograph cards, like that hurt, all right? You can't replace that. They stole some jewelry. They went and they took like some of my oldest son, his bedroom's upstairs. They took some cash out of his wallet. They went, the most odd thing that they took though, they emptied out our change jar, right? We had a big change jar. You guys probably do this. You throw all your loose change in there and you'll save up for maybe spending money on vacation or something. Well, they stole all of that. But then the most odd thing was they stole my camera bag. Not my camera, mind you. They took the camera out, stole the camera bag. I was offended. I'm like, what's wrong with my camera? I guess, honey, I need a better camera. It's not even like theft worthy, you know? It's weird. And what's interesting about when we got robbed, right? What's interesting is at the end of the day, it wasn't so much about what they took from us. It wasn't about the material things. I mean, we know we can replace almost all of that. That wasn't a big deal. But what's interesting is not so much what was taken, but what was left. What was left was a sense of insecurity. What was left was a sense of fear. What was left was a sense of vulnerability. What was left was this anxiousness about, can we sleep tonight? When my daughter said, I don't know if I want to sleep in my bedroom tonight. That was what was left. And I want to tell you, the thief doesn't necessarily want to steal your stuff so much as he wants to steal your peace and steal your joy and steal your purpose. And what happens is we begin looking to fulfill that in all of these other things, and we bog ourselves down. And he wants to overwhelm us. Now, you don't have to raise your hand for this, but anybody here feel overwhelmed? Anybody in life, you're feeling overwhelmed? Let me give you sort of a self-assessment if you find yourself feeling overwhelmed. You can answer this for yourself. You don't have to raise a hand. You can if you want. But have you ever found yourself saying, there just aren't enough hours in the day? Right? Anybody? You're like, why 24? If we could have 28 or 30 even, that would be better, right? It's not enough hours in the day to get it all done. Anybody have a hard time shutting down their brain at the end of the day? Lay your head on the pillow and you can't stop thinking about everything that you got to do. How about this one? Can you remember the last time you did something fun for yourself? You're like, well, 2011, I think. I went shopping at Walmart by myself. That doesn't count, all right? If shopping at Walmart is fun, you need to redefine fun, all right? How about this one? This is a good one. Anybody have imaginary arguments with others? Oh, man, I'm good at this one. Let me just warn you. If you try to have an imaginary argument with me, I will stomp your tail. I'm so good at imaginary arguments. I'm good at them. All right? Anybody get angry easily? Anyone? Yeah, okay. All right. How about this one? Are you typically late to appointments, or better yet, everything? Right? Husbands are like throwing elbows. Don't throw elbows. Has your husband ever thrown an elbow at you in church? There we go. All right. What about this? Do you have a hard time telling people no? Someone asks you to do something, you know you don't have the time, you really don't even feel like it, but you're like, if I say no, what are they going to think about me? And then they're going to talk about me, and so I might as well say yes. And you find yourself overcommitting to things that you never should have said yes to. Are there people that you're intentionally avoiding? You know it, you see them coming, you head the other way. Don't want to deal with them. Do you find yourself losing hope? You used to be hopeful, but now you find yourself more hopeless. The glass is half empty and it doesn't seem like it's ever going to get filled back up. Is there something in life that you're worrying about right now? If you're being honest, is there something in your life that's weighing heavy on you and it's overwhelming you and it's causing you to worry right now? Is there something for you? See, in Matthew chapter 11, verse 28, Jesus said this. These are powerful words. If you answered yes to any of those, you find yourself in any of those, write this verse down. He says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened. Isn't that what happens when we find ourselves overwhelmed? We're worn out and we're burdened. He says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you what? Say with me, I will give you rest. Rest. He says, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Now, a yoke is kind of a strange word. We don't use this really today, but if you were a farmer and you were plowing a field with a pair of oxen, a yoke is what you would put over their neck and they would pull the plow. And a yoke that was designed for those oxen make the workload lighter. And Jesus is saying, when you live in a way that is consistent with my teachings and my instructions, you're going to find life is easier, it's lighter, you're going to find rest for your soul. And he says this in verse 30, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. So many times, even as Christians, we find ourselves going, God, if your yoke is easy and your burden is light, then why is life so overwhelming? Why does it seem so difficult? Why does it seem like there's never enough time, never enough money, never enough of me to do everything that needs to get done? I feel so overwhelmed. I want to tell you, in this passage in Matthew chapter 11 tells us what we need to do when we feel overwhelmed. I want you to write this down on one of the gray note cards. Just jot this down. We overcome. You can write this down when we come to me. Write down these 3 words. Come to me, Jesus says. He says, come to me. You feel overwhelmed? Come to me. We overcome when we come to Jesus. The best thing we can do, this seems so obvious, but the best thing we can do when the stress of life begins to pile up is turn to Jesus. But it's one of the last things that we oftentimes do. I mean, think about it. Where do you turn when you feel overwhelmed, right? Most of us, first place we turn is friends. We look for somebody that will sympathize with us, right? We look for somebody that we can go on about how difficult life is and how overwhelmed we are and how there's not enough time and there's not enough money. And we want people to go, man, right on. Absolutely. Absolutely. We look for people that will sympathize with us. We go to our friends. We look for somebody that will attend our pity party, right? Like, will you sympathize with me? And then, for some, we turn to Facebook. We're like, we get online and status and we just dump, right? You got these friends? Just dump everything on there and you don't know what to do. Like, do I like it? Life is so awful. This woe is me. Like. What do you mean you like this? Like, well, no, I don't like it. I wanted to sympathize with you. I didn't know. Should I just leave a comment? I just ignored it, and that's weird. Then there's some where we don't turn anywhere. We just feel paralyzed. We just disengage. We disengage from home. We disengage from work. We disengage from our friends. We back away. I find for me, here's what I do. Here's what I'm guilty. I'm guilty when I find myself feeling overwhelmed. I stop doing the things I should do, and I start doing the things that I have to do. Right? I stop doing the things I enjoy. I stop doing the things that fill me up because things have got to get done. And if I don't do them, who's going to do them? And so I find myself stop doing things that I ought to do. For instance, one of my biggest responsibilities here as a pastor is preparing messages to be able to preach. I know that every weekend I get to get on this stage, and it's an incredible privilege and honor to be able to share the Word of God. But I want to be able to preach a message that's biblical, that's practical, that's inspiring, maybe a little bit funny. I want people to walk away saying, this is what I'm going to do with this. And so I spend a lot of time praying and preparing. But as the week ticks by, if I don't feel like the message is coming together, I start freaking out a little bit. I start feeling the pressure. I start feeling overwhelmed. And here's what happens. This is just my confession to you guys. I will begin skimping on my time with God so that I can work on a message for God. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. I stop being with God so that I can do the things that I feel like I have to do. And I just imagine God's up there going, why don't you just be with me? Just hang out with me, and I'll give you the message. And I'm like, if you give me the message, I have time to hang out with you. God's going, no. Hang out with me, I'll give you the message. I'm like, give me the message. He's like, you can't handle the message. It's such a challenge. It is. And then, like, if Thursday comes around, I don't have a message, I'm angry. And you don't want to be near me because you might be an illustration. But like I came across this person, he's talking about me. I was desperate. I had nothing. But here's what happens. Here's what I find. If I, in the midst of this chaos, if I just unplug for a moment and go, okay, I'm coming to you, God. I'm coming to you. Here's what happens. I find there's a calm that comes over me. There's a stilling that God does in my heart where I stop freaking out and I remember that he is God and I am not. Like, I am not God. And I know that we all get this God complex sometimes, and we find ourselves going, if I don't do it, who will? And if I don't, so we allow all this stuff on our plates. But here's what you need to know. You are not God. I am not God. Let's all say that together on 3. I am not God. 1, 2, 3. I am not God. That feels good. You should probably make that one of the things you say every morning. Like, I am not God. You are God. I am not. You are a very bad God, all right? You do not do a good job of balancing everything. None of us do. Because we weren't created to live life that way. But when I take time and I just refocus and I come to him, he's got such a way of meeting me where I am. He knows about the chaos. He knows about the busyness. He knows about the stress. That's why he says, come to me and I will give you rest. When was the last time you felt like you really operated from a place of rest? You felt like you were rested. See, we get this idea that rest comes when everything is done just right. Right? Some of you, let's just be honest, who here, you are a to-do list person. You love lists, right? Come on, raise a hand. If your spouse isn't raising their hand there too, just raise their hand for them. There we go. Some of you love to-do lists so much that if you do something that's not on the list, you write it on the list just so you can check it off. Come on. Yeah. Like, do others do that? Yes. For real. But here's what you found. Rest does not come when the to-do list is fully checked off, right? Because as soon as you're done, there's more things to put on there. It doesn't come from that. Rest doesn't even come from taking a vacation. Because most of us come back from vacation feeling like we need another vacation. Where does rest come from? Rest comes from God. He says, come to me, and I'll give you rest. We've got this idea that rest is like for the weak, right? Well, I don't need to rest, you know? I'll rest when I'm dead, right? Like, yeah, well, at this pace, you'll get there a whole lot quicker, right? Rest is, I don't need to rest. Like I'm a super Christian. You know, I got an S on my chest. Look at me, I don't need to rest. Listen, rest is not for the weak, it's for the godly. God gave 10 commandments. One of them has to do with rest. God rested. Jesus would withdraw and rest. If Jesus needed to rest, hello, right? Some of us, we need to rest. Some of us are like, well, man, you know, there's work to be done, and Satan, he's working overtime. Satan doesn't take a day off. Yeah, but he loses, right? He loses, and quite honestly, he should not be your role model, right? For some of us, it's rest that we need. I've been reading a book called The Best Yes by Lisa TerKeurst. She's a great author, and she says this. She says, the stress of an overwhelmed schedule often leads to sadness of an underwhelmed soul. The stress of an overwhelmed schedule often leads to sadness of an underwhelmed soul. The thief wants to steal, kill, and destroy. Jesus says, I've come that you might have life and have it to the full. Which one of those statements best resonates with the way your life feels right now? Overwhelmed or overcoming? Steal, kill, and destroy, or living life to the full? Because overwhelmed lives happen. It happens. It's the nature of the world we live in. There's always more to do. There's always more opportunities than we have time for. We're going to feel overwhelmed. There's going to be this chaotic, storms of life are going to happen. In the Bible, in Mark chapter 4, it's a great story. I'd encourage you reading it sometime this week. If you want to write down Mark chapter 4, verses 35 through 41, there's a story of Jesus and his disciples. And he says, guys, let's get in the boat. We're going to go to the other side of the sea. And his disciples, these were fishermen. These were people that spent time on the water. They were familiar with the water. And so they get in the boat, and they make their way across the sea, and Jesus lays down in the boat and takes a nap. He rests. And all of a sudden, while they're making their way across the sea, a storm rolls in, and it begins to freak them out. This is a storm like anything they've ever navigated before. They're fearing for their life. And I've always found this interesting. Like, Jesus is asleep. There's a storm. Hello, Jesus, don't you care? Why are you sleeping? I've wondered, why is Jesus sleeping? Like, why do we have a sleeping Savior in the middle of a storm? Is he sleeping because he doesn't care? See, when you read the story, you discover that he cares. He's not asleep because he doesn't care. He's asleep because he's in control. He's not freaking out. But they are. They're like, what do we do? We're going to die out here. And so they do the one thing that we should do. They go to Jesus and they wake him up. They come to him. And they're literally like, you got to do something. And he speaks 3 words to the storm. He says, quiet, be still. And all of a sudden, the wind and the waves, they settle down. And a calm comes over the sea. And these guys start looking at each other, and they've been walking with Jesus, but they've never been rescued from a storm like this before. And they begin to look at each other, and they say, who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him. I tell you this story because that's how a lot of us feel. We feel so overwhelmed by everything that's going on around us. Everywhere we turn, we're overwhelmed. We feel like we're under attack. We feel like there's more than we can handle. We're taking on water. We're going down. I want to tell you the one thing that they did is the one thing that we need to do. They didn't try to row their way out of the storm. We try that all the time. We try to just work our way out of it, work harder, try harder, get up earlier, stay up later, burn the candle at both ends. No, they said, Jesus, you got to do something. I'm coming to you. I'm coming to you. And what I want to challenge you with is over this series and today, what is it you need to come to him and say, this is where I'm at. These are the decisions I'm trying to make. This is how I feel like there's not enough time in the day. I feel so overwhelmed. This is what's going on in my family. I'm coming to you because I don't have the answers. You are God and I am not. I'm coming to you because I want to go from being overwhelmed to overcoming, which is what you have called me to be. So church, I want to just ask you, even as we're closing, what is it in your life that you feel like God is saying, this is for you? This is why I have you here today. This is an area of your life where you are so overwhelmed and you're trying to make it all work, but I need you to come to me. What's that area in your life? Would you pray with me?